So, John Livsey, you are the one of the executives at the PBLA. First off, let me say thank you for. I don't. Most people probably don't realize how much work you guys are putting in as far as the logistics of just doing all of this, trying to orchestrate all these arenas, practices, coaches, physicals. How do you guys like what made you think, oh man, we really need to get this kind of headache rolling?
For me, it's never been a headache, but I know I don't speak for all. You know, we knew there was a need for this, and if you start from that perspective and then you realize, okay, there's a need and now there's an opportunity. So a need becomes an opportunity. And, and then it just becomes a challenge. So need, opportunity, challenge. So, I think if you're wired a certain way, that becomes, somewhat intoxicating. And then, when you do the little things, you think about the little milestones. We had that combine in Elmira, and to see those players and how excited they were and what it meant to them to be treated like professionals, then you're like, okay, that's really what it's all about. The big payoff isn't even here yet, when we build the fan base and we see arenas filled. It's going to be a process, but when we get there, that'll be the big payback. So is there a certain amount of it that's a selfish motivation? Of course there is. I mean, you want to do something that's is fun and challenging and could be really cool. But there's also all these other things that you see for the sport, the growth of the sport, the players, the look in their eyes, the appreciation they show. So there's a lot of things that go into play, and then honestly, what it becomes is, the analogy I use to most people is, if you go to a stadium concert and you see those soundboards and you see all those massive speakers and the guitars and all that stuff, and you realize, what if they miss one wire? You don't hear all this. So, that's it. So you're just connecting the wires and the circuitry, and you're trying to make sure that as you get closer to the first events, that if you miss anything, it's going to be for the sign out in the parking lot, not for the concert. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's like you said, the player experience. That was kind of how I got into this. Is I knew a bunch of guys that were trying out for the league, and that's the first thing they said is that Elmira Combine was amazing. But then I've talked to some other guys who, on top of that, made some training camps, and just how cool it was to have a plane ticket bought for them. You walk into the hotel, you just say your name, and they're like, "Hey, Mister, so and so, thank you for checking in." And like for some of these guys, this is their first ever experience getting this. Some of these guys, it's a transition from college. Me and Russ were talking about the having somebody like him, where in college all these guys have workout plans, you have strength and conditioning, and you guys have added that. But not all your players were college players, and then you've got a mix of pros who have been through this before to kind of walk these younger guys through it. It's a really great mix of it, and like I said. The players, everybody I've talked to, just says you guys are doing an absolute bang up job of making sure they feel that way.
It's gratifying to hear that. It's guys like Russ and Carmen and Brian and Steve are doing a lot of the work. Mike, George. I'm really trying to make sure that the business model is put together the right way and integrated into the lacrosse product. And it's all those guys work. They're working real hard. But we've all got collective experiences that I think they give us a bit of an advantage, maybe an unfair advantage in trying to pull this off because Carmen's really assembled a dream team of social media team out in Kansas City and some wickedly smart people. And it's because of that you have the audacity to think that you can do this. Honestly, if you didn't have that kind of a support and more importantly, I would say is when Steve and I were first sketching this on a napkin, during COVID, we had thought about it for years, talked about it for years, but when we really started to think, oh, we can do this, what it came down to was the players. These guys are the top, 1/1000th of a percent of the players on the planet who could do this. And then what it becomes is, okay, now we're in a different era. When I started, in sports, a while back, I was just telling this story the other day. Now you can push a button and you can hit 120,000 focused fans for a specific promotion. Back then, you know, I was an intern with the Sabres back in the day. They're giving me a smock and a tube of ink, and they're saying, okay, you got to put this ink on this drum, and then you got to put the paper in, and then you got to make sure it's not too much ink coverage. And, so we've come a long way. So when you think that you could have a proven spectator sport, the top athletes in the world, because remember, over the last 10, 15 years, a lot of the best athletes were probably not allowed to play football because of the head injuries, what had come out about head injuries. So, and the fact that we're the lacrosse is the fastest growing sport in the country, you throw all that stuff into the blender with the best athletes, a great, great team, back office team, you got a chance. You got a chance. You got a chance at something special. That's what drives us.
Yeah, speaking of your time with the Sabres and that, so my main, like, I guess expertise in the area, not even, that's a bit of an overstatement, but so I grew up in Glens Falls by the Adirondack Red Wings and got to see, like, when you have a good product and a nice community feel, and this is my transition to this, is kind of how I want to ask you how you picked your markets, because they all seem like great, like smaller hometown, the fans can really get involved in everything, but big enough cities that you have the population, but small enough towns where you get that hometown feel. And everybody I talked to, that's what they said about Elmira's. Without even having a team, just having the combine there, all the people in the town were like swinging by and looking at it, and they're like, what is this? Oh my God, this looks amazing. So how did you guys kind of go about picking your markets?
Yeah. So you start out, and you know that you want the traditional lacrosse, content belts. You want the Northeast, the Mid Atlantic. So you you got your map in front of you all the time. You're always circling. Okay, well, this could work. And then you want arenas initially that are right size for the sport. What do I mean by that? Well, it does become basic economics. If you got an arena in a place like Elmira, you use that example. If you can get a foundation of support, and then you can increase that through promotional activity and stuff. At some point, the supply diminishes and the demand increases because of the reduced supply. So yeah, there was a lot of that conversation taking place. But it was multifaceted. It was, let's make sure we're in the traditional places. Let's, always look at how we can expand the sport. So we're down the road. We know that there's talent in other places in the Midwest, for instance. We know there's talent in St. Louis and Chicago. There's talent down south. There's talent everywhere right now. But also, one of the things about lacrosse people that is amazing to me, and I saw this at the combine. I was talking to guys that came in from Fort Lauderdale, from California, from Knoxville, and they were like, one guy came in from up in Massachusetts in his 1960s VW van, and so you realize these guys are, they are so passionate about the sport, and they're a unique breed. I think in my experience, working in the NHL for 17 years, the NFL for a handful of years, 5 years, I guess. Um, all the athletes are really, really cool, but lacrosse guys are they're wired different. So if we can tap into that passion in the increasing talent pool, be strategic in the markets we go into, make sure, like you said, that these arenas are right sized for the sport so that we can fill them. I mean, nothing worse than watching a TV event, and you got all empty seats. If you can turn on an event, people, see it and they say, "Oh my God, look at all the people there." That's a start. So it all goes in. It all goes into the formula, and then what you try to do is you try to create the perfect formula. Okay, how do we make sure that we manufacture that success on a market by market basis? And that's more of a art than a science, but you try to make sure that you try to get as close to a science as you can get, and that's what we are working on now.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of these leagues, like you said, you were involved in the NHL, the NFL. It's the youth programs getting the kids involved always seems to be because that's what everybody wants to see too. The kids are in there, they're screaming, they're yelling, they're diehards, they love it. And one thing that I think is really cool about this league is, like you said, lacrosse players are such an interesting breed. They really have to have always had to try to find a way to play lacrosse, sacrificing lots of time. It's really like one of the pure versions of the sport because they're not doing it just for the money. They're out there because they absolutely love the sport, and you guys are providing them an opportunity to be able to go do it professionally. That is like such everybody the expression on their face when you ask a guy like what was it like to get drafted, what was it like to tell your parents you made the team, like those are so cool, and I get to capture so many of those. I'm lucky with that. But the like I'm sure you guys have some kind of plan to work with the youth groups, and I've already seen some posts from some of the teams about getting the kids involved. I'm sure that's a focus of yours.
Yeah, it's a primary focus, certainly. You gotta get the kids involved. Anybody that's been a parent knows that if your kid comes home and says, "I want to do this," you figure out a way to let them do it. I mean, it's just that's parenting 101. You want to make your kids happy. So, sports 101 isn't far off. It's you want to make those parents' kids happy. So you want to give them the chance to come out. You want to get them, to be involved with the players. You want those players to be superheroes to them because, ultimately that's what it's all about. I mean, if these kids love lacrosse because they're playing lacrosse and they see, Marcus Holman or somebody and they say, oh my God, I got to meet Marcus Holman. They go tell their friends and, then, and that's how this all goes. I mean, and nowadays with the power of, these players with their social media and stuff, if we can have a partnership with the players to help them to increase their fan visibility and their connectivity to their fan bases, ultimately it's going to benefit us because it's all going to be circuitous, and we're all going to benefit, and we're motivated to increase their popularity, and by nature, by definition, that'll increase our popularity. So it's all about the kid. It always goes back to the kids. So you're right. You're absolutely right. We want to make sure the kids are coming to all the games and they bring their parents, and but it's not just a kid sport. Honestly, this is a sport done right. That's about the kids. Sitting over there. It's about the 20 somethings that are, going to the pregame party and they're sitting over there and they're having the time of their lives. And it's about sports fans. It's about everybody. So you want to be, you want to make sure it's all inclusive and multi generational. And what we experienced, Steve and I, when we were part of this team that started the Bandits in Buffalo back 30 years ago. What we experienced was this incredible overnight sensation that was built on a foundation of just sports marketing basics. We made sure we nailed the basics, and then this phenomenon took off that still lives to this day. I still feel pride when I drive around. I'm here in Buffalo area, and you can't go anywhere without seeing a car wrapped in bandits, or bandits license plates, or bandits flags and stuff. The bandits are as much a part of the fabric of this community is the Bills and Sabres, in many ways. So can we create that? Yeah, we can, because we did. And that's what I keep telling our team is, hey guys, look at, Steve and I, we were at the front end of creating the NLL. That's the major league of the sport. We were the guys that basically, created the marketing that created the overnight sensation that has become the longest lasting, most successful franchise in North America in indoor lacrosse, the Buffalo Bandits. So if you can do that stuff once, by definition, you should be able to do it again. If you did it twice, you definitely can do it. It's a trend at that point. So, but it's all got to be baked into the foundation of kids, solid, game experience, fan experience, the players, the game itself. We think this is important. We think that the game itself is going to be the most incredible sports experience that people can go to. And why do I say that? What people are going to see is 2 hours and 15 minutes of nonstop action. It's going to be scoring. It's going to be incredible athleticism. It's going to be hitting. It's going to be finesse. It's going to be everything you want in a sport, and wrapped in an experience that is multi generational, upbeat, affordable, and they're going to want to come back. I talk to people, one guy in particular in Buffalo, he's Mr. Buffalo. He still talks about when the Bandits started that he's never seen anything like it before or since. This guy's been everywhere. I mean, he's been all over the planet. He's a very successful, self-made guy. He still thinks those early Bandit days were the best he's ever seen. And honestly, it was his words that, when Steve and I were drawing this up on a napkin, we kept coming back to Dave. What would Dave do here? So it's you know, if we nail this right with this all-star team that Carmen's assembled, and I think we will, it's going to be something that people are going to be pretty proud of for, in 30 years from now. Whether or not I'm here to talk about it like I am the Bandits, 30 years down the road, I don't know. But I think 30 years from now, if we do this right, this is going to be a league that people say, "Oh wow, that is the coolest league," because it's going to integrate the players. It's hardwired, for the future. Right now, it's hardwired for the future. This league is a native to the sports world, the kids world of now. A lot of the other leagues, all of the other leagues, they had, they're immigrants to, the social media age, all that stuff. This league was built for that stuff, and that's going to be among the many strengths of our league.
Yeah, it's been unfortunately yesterday I was supposed to talk to Steve Donner and something happened. He didn't quite make it, but hopefully I get to talk to the rest of you guys. But like you were saying about creating that bandits culture, me and my wife drove out to Buffalo for the Firewolves game. We're big Firewolves fans, and that culture you created is it's magical. It really is when you go in there and see it, and the way it's such a family oriented thing. Like we take our kids to the Firewolves games. I love lacrosse. My kids don't even care like who wins or loses. They just have such a fun time cheering for it. And one thing you guys have done that I wanted to ask you about, I don't know how much you know about it, is the goalie pad size. I mean, that to me is going to be a huge thing, I think, because that's what people want to see is goals. 90% of my comments on YouTube when I show goalie saves are, that's not fair. The goalie's huge. Is there any room left after the goalie pads? I mean, I'm not sure. Like I said, I know you're more of the business side of things, but do you know like the specifics on the goalie pad size changes or?
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I mean, I certainly, we have a pretty tight knit group, and we're all part of those discussions. Um, I think that Brian really took the lead on that and did a really good job with it. You cover all. We literally, some of the stuff that we're going to be doing here with the penalty shots and stuff like that as an option. It was like we looked at the sport that we created with the NLL back in '97. When Steve did it, but I was the first commissioner, so I was part of it. And we merged the mill with the NLL, and it evolved over time. When I was commissioner, we brought in Toronto, and that was a bellwether moment because Toronto, it became a very physical team, and quickly, and their coach changed the whole transition part of the game that we love, the up and down fast break stuff, and over time the sport changed because of it, because coaches are coaches. If they can clamp down and prevent teams from scoring and skill players from skilling, um, they're going to do it, unless you have a league that's nimble enough and visionary enough to say we don't want that. You think back, I wasn't around for it, it was before me, but when the AFL, the NFL merged, we all know what happened. The AFL, they had this guy, Joe Namath, he was gonna, got bombs away sort of thing, and the NFL was 3 yards in a cloud of dust, or cloud of dirt, I guess, right? So these two leagues merged, and which one from a stylistic standpoint influenced it the most? Obviously, the AFL, because it's bombs away most of the time. And they in the league in the '70s, they set rules to make sure that the offense had the advantage, because that's entertaining. That's what draws fans. It worked well, obviously. So we want to make sure that we're not so stuck in our ways. We have no ways. We didn't start yet, so we can do anything we want. It's our league. So we want to make sure we identify, and we're identifying the ways that we can make this league that sport that we saw 30 years ago, that people were like, honestly, they'd watch it for 2 hours and 15 minutes, be like, oh my God, they were as exhausted as the players were, so that's what we want. And we feel if we can capture that, and we think we can, that the fans will come out and they'll tell their friends, and it'll be a great win for everybody.
Yeah. Now you kind of glossed over it, but the penalty shot. So instead of taking a minor, the coach who would be on the power play essentially has the choice of taking a penalty shot or taking the power play. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's yeah, my recollection is it's they get two opportunities per half, and that's exactly what it is, and it becomes a pretty neat strategy. Is it was used a couple times in a couple of the scrimmages this past weekend, and coaches were raving about it. They think at one time it was a 5 minute penalty, I think it was, and the first half of it he took the penalty shot, scored, and then he used the rest of the time to kind of kill the clock a little bit. So, I mean, strategically, what it does is it changes the strategy of the game, but it also creates. You think about one of the most exciting things ever in hockey is a penalty shot. I mean, they used to have a show when I was a kid, a shootout in the NHL, and that's basically what it was. They'd show this thing that they filmed during the summer, and these players, the best players in the league, would do breakaways against the goalie as part of this ongoing year long program contest. And so if you think that penalty shots they all get fans on their feet, if you can make that part of the sport, um, and make it part of the excitement and it's part of the strategy and part of the lexicon of what you're creating, you've done something pretty cool. What did it take? I don't know. It just took some listening to some bright lacrosse minds who said, "What if you did this?" You got to be open minded. We're open minded, and if at some point we do something silly, if people say that's silly, we'll take a look at it and say, "Yeah, you know what? They're right. It was silly." So, it's the beauty of having your own league in a blank slate.
Yeah, and one of the things I thought was really interesting was the difference in the way these guys played. Like you guys set up a new rule set, and with the way the transition's going, the way I understand it is there's one door in, one door out, and it's essentially creating the long bench the whole game. And some of the players I was talking to were saying that it creates so many more odd man, not necessarily fast break rushes, but the odd man time, which anybody who really understands lacrosse knows if you can get the goalie moving side to side, you've got that extra player who can't cover anybody and you have to create the slide. Yeah, I think these games with the rules you guys have set up are going to have tons of goals. It's nothing but excitement. Now, one thing I wanted to ask is I noticed you guys have a lot of field players and a lot of like fast, tall, athletic, like the uh, you know, the,
Athletic.
thank you. The athleticism of these guys blew me away. And I mean, there's some monsters out there. Like when I got to meet Bill O'Brien and I'd stand next to him and he's like, 2 foot taller than me, it feels like, and about 4 of me wide. And he's still like a gazelle out there as fast as he is and how agile he is.
Yeah, I mean that's what we identify. You know what we knew that just by you know 97% of the players, this is what got us last year when we finally, 2 years ago, whatever it was, that we decided to go forward, was the understanding that 97% of the players in the National Lacrosse League were Canadians. And, I can look out my window here if it wasn't a blizzard and see Canada. So I love Canada, but, what about the fact that the best athletes in the United States at the collegiate level have nowhere to play, after their collegiate all American collegiate careers are over. So, does it surprise me? No, we thought if we have 9 teams, we're going to have 180 players. If we can't get the cream of the crop with those odds, then we did something wrong. Which takes me back to what you said earlier. You make sure that the combine is major league, because if it's major league, lacrosse people talk, man. It's a small community, so they did too. And then we started, now all the superstars were saying, "Oh wow, something's going on with this thing." And so it was all very strategic. Aside from me, there's a lot of really smart guys in this league, and this was all part of a plan. Every piece of it, every single piece of this thing was well thought out. Did we think of everything? No. Are we going to be 100% on opening night? No. Will we be great at some point? I think so, because you know what? That's been our constant aim: is everything we do, make sure it's major league, and try to be as great a league as we could possibly be. So very strategic, but it takes time. You don't do it overnight, honestly. But if you got the best athletes in the world at what they do, that's a good start.
Yeah, I unfortunately won't be able to make it to the opening night, but me and the guy that does the Yeti talk there, we're going to go out to the Bombers Elmira game. make a party out of it. It's about 3 hours for me, but I tell you, I I know a lot of these guys and the athleticism and what these guys can do, and now that they're actually being compensated and can kind of take some time off of some other projects maybe that they're working on, I think. I mean, it's only going to improve. You've taken these guys who only had a summer league to play in, they couldn't play all winter, and now they're playing all winter. And you have so many guys, like you said, that are on that cusp. They come out of D1 college and not having the American box youth program set up yet. We're so far behind that like this really I think you guys are have nailed it and building these youth programs, letting the kids see, as you said, wow, look at these heroes. Wait, that guy was my coach last year. Wait, this guy was, and picking teams with some local like all-stars. I mean, every team I've talked to has somebody from the local area who was always the best player in that area or has moved into that area and is now known as the best player. And now you guys have provided an opportunity to some of these people who couldn't make other commitments now to be able to do it. What would you say was the biggest difference or surprise between when you guys started the Bandits as opposed to starting this?
Well, it's the biggest difference, by far, is that when we started the Bandits, there was only 6 teams in Western New York who played high school lacrosse. I only knew what lacrosse was because when I was a freshman at Canisius High School, one of my neighborhood friends, George Tracy, he walked around with a lacrosse stick like 24 hours a day. I think he slept with it. And I just thought it was the oddest thing in the world, And, so when we started the band, it's like nobody knew what lacrosse was. No, everybody does. That's the biggest difference. So I say it all the time. If you got a sport that is being predicted to be the next big thing, and it's the highest growth thing, and everybody knows what it is, you got a real good chance of something pretty cool because it's already, like I keep saying, it's already a proven spectator sport. I point to June 15th of this year. I tell everybody that'll listen, so I'm going to tell you. June 15th of this year, two ends of New York State, where lacrosse was created, by the way, New York State. Buffalo, New York, June 15th, over 19,000 fans went to a Bandits game. The same day in Hempstead, down the other end, the highest viewed lacrosse game in history was taking place in Hempstead in the PLL. So if you look at those as signs, which I do, that something's going on here, I tell people, it took 800 years for lacrosse to have its breakout day, breakout moment, and it happened on June 15th in New York State, where the game was created. So I find that to be sort of ironic, but pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now the deal with Lacrosse TV, that is such a huge thing because even the NLL and the PLL are behind a paywall, whereas you guys will not be, and I really think are, unless I'm not understanding that right. Are you guys going to
No,
be?
you're understanding it right.
Yeah, not being behind a paywall is going to allow so many of these kids whose families are not going to pay an ESPN Plus subscription and stuff like that. I think, yeah, you guys are going to be one of the most highly viewed. It's one of the first leagues that's taking lacrosse out of the paywall and directly into the public. Uh, Older people who know how to use the smart TVs, they have the apps for it. One of my father-in-law actually, who doesn't know how to do anything technology-wise, was playing with his Chromecast the other day, and he's like, "What's this lacrosse TV thing?" So people are finding it, and I think genius move on your guys' part to not put it behind a paywall.
Genius move. I would tell you
I could be
this.
wrong.
No, no. I mean, I give Steve credit for initiating that relationship, and I've been working with it as well. But I think in reality, because this is an emerging sport, we're getting a lot of attention. People are looking at it and saying, "You guys are onto something here," like because of all the reasons we've explained, right? So to the extent that we can get this out to the masses, that certainly is our goal. Lacrosse TV is going to be a great partner. They're really, really good people with a great vision for the sport, and we're just very fortunate. We're lucky that they've embraced us, and are treating us as well as they are, and they're going to be as responsible for growing the sport as anybody. And it's a win-win partnership, and we're just very fortunate to be able to work with them.
That's awesome. So they're doing the bi-weekly game. Are the other games going to be recorded? Do you guys have a?
Yeah, no, it's a weekly. It's a game of the week. It's mainly every week. We're doing the biweekly show
That's
with
right.
Kevin's. Yeah, and we're doing on opposite weeks. We're doing a podcast. So the PBLA podcast with Bruce Wozniak. So our goal was to make sure we had meaningful content. We wanted to give Kevin and Bruce a couple of weeks to build their shows out and make it really special, and and make it part of our arsenal to get our players out there, get our message out there. So Bruce has got a long history of great podcast work. Kevin's a very experienced TV personality, and he does PGA work. He's been in the NHL. He was a play-by-play guy for the Sabres. I mean, one of the things, I keep saying it, we got all stars. I mean, the one thing we did really well was we identified a great sport with a need, but we also made a commitment that everything we're going to do major league. And by having these major league people and these major league outlets, you just keep making, it's like painting a picture, brushstroke by brushstroke. At some point in time, it's going to be hopefully a masterpiece, but it takes a lot of effort, a lot of coordination, a little bit of patience, because we're at the point now, honestly, where as the days are going faster and they're reducing in numbers, there's a lot of people who are like, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of excitement, there's nerves can get frayed, but overall, we take great comfort in when people are saying, "Oh man, I love what you guys are doing. You guys got to figure it out. You guys are geniuses." No, we're not, but it's all coming together pretty well.
Yeah, but thank you so much for
So,
your time. It's been awesome. I really appreciate it. Wish you guys nothing but the best, and I hope to keep talking to you guys and spreading the word as much as we can.
thank you so much. Really appreciate your coverage of the league, and it's humbling that people like you would want to talk to us. Honestly, it's really exciting, and we are working tirelessly to fulfill our vision, but to reward your faith. So thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, and we'll do it again sometime. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Thanks, man.